Hello, and welcome back to Cursed Lullabies. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy drifting into dark, chilling tales whispered like cursed lullabies, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, get comfortable. Dim the lights if you dare. Relax your mind. Let the outside world fade away. And let's begin. Story 1. My exams were finally over, and for the first time in weeks, I had absolutely nothing important to do. That should have felt like freedom. For months, my life had been nothing but books, notes, late-night revision, and the constant fear that I was forgetting something important. Every morning, I woke up with formulas, dates, definitions, and half-memorized answers crowding my head. Every night, I slept with the guilt of not studying enough, even if I had spent the entire day doing nothing else. So when the exams ended, I thought I would feel light. Instead, I felt strange. The house was too quiet. My books were stacked in the corner, but I didn't want to look at them. My friends were resting or sleeping or probably enjoying themselves somewhere, but I didn't feel like going out. I sat at home all day, moving from one room to another, scrolling through my phone, feeling bored but also too tired to do anything useful. By late afternoon, my mother noticed she had gone to the market in the morning and returned with vegetables, fruit, and a large cloth bag full of peas. The bag was heavy enough that she placed it on the floor with a thump. "You're free now, aren't you?" she said. I already knew that tone. Before I could answer, she carried the bag to the sitting area and emptied it in front of me. A mountain of green pea pods spilled out across the floor mat, fresh and bright, still carrying bits of dirt and dried leaves from the market. Then she placed 2 large bowls in front of me. One bowl was for the peas, the other was for the empty shells. "This is your job," she said. "Shell all of them." I groaned, but not loudly enough to start an argument. After weeks of exams, I didn't really have an excuse. Also, there was something peaceful about the task. Repetitive, simple, mindless. Maybe that was exactly what I needed. I got up first and went to the basin. I turned on the tap, wet my hands, and scrubbed them thoroughly with soap. My mother was strict about that, especially when it came to food. I cleaned under my nails, rinsed my palms, and dried them on the towel hanging nearby. Then I grabbed my phone, plugged in my earphones, and sat down cross-legged in front of the peas. I played music and began. The first pod opened easily under my thumbs. I split it down the middle and flicked the peas into the bowl. They dropped with a small tack-tack sound against the metal bottom, sharp enough that I could hear it even through the song playing in my ears. Tack, 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 it became a rhythm. Open the pod, flick the peas, throw the shell into the other bowl. Again and again. Soon my hands began moving without thought. The pods were cool and slightly damp against my fingers. Some opened cleanly, revealing perfect rows of round green peas tucked inside like tiny beads. Others were stubborn, making me press my thumbs into the seam until they split. A few were too young, with peas so small they barely seemed worth saving. A few were older and tougher, with strings along the sides that stuck to my fingers. The smell was sweet and green. Fresh peas have a very specific smell. It is light, grassy, and almost sugary. The scent rose around me as the bowls filled, and after a while it made me hungry. I kept my eyes mostly on my phone, watching videos and changing songs while my hands worked. I didn't really look too closely at what I was doing. There was no reason to. The peas looked normal enough at a glance, and I had shelled peas many times before. After some time, the pea bowl was almost half full. The scrap bowl, however, was overflowing with empty shells. They had piled up high, some slipping over the edge and falling onto the mat. I paused my music, gathered the shells, and carried the bowl to the kitchen dustbin. The moment I opened the lid, the smell hit me. It was disgusting. Rotten vegetable scraps, old food, wet garbage, and something sour underneath it all. I turned my face away immediately, dumped the pea shells in as fast as I could, and slammed the lid shut. Even after I stepped back, the smell seemed to cling to my hands. I went to the basin again and washed them. This time I used more soap. I scrubbed hard between every finger, under every nail until the smell faded. Then I rinsed, dried my hands, and returned to the peas. By then, the room had grown dimmer. Evening light came through the window in soft orange strips. My mother was somewhere in the kitchen, busy with dinner. The house had that calm, late-day feeling, the kind that usually makes a person feel safe and lazy. I sat down again and continued shelling. Cack. Tack. The bowl filled slowly. My back began to ache from sitting in the same position. My fingers were slightly sore from splitting the pods open. I kept telling myself I would stop after a few more handfuls, but every time I looked at the pile, it still seemed too large. After a while, my stomach growled. I had not eaten properly since morning. The sweet smell of the peas had been teasing me for too long, and fresh raw peas were something I had always liked. When I was younger, I used to steal little handfuls while my mother cooked. They were crisp and sweet, almost like tiny natural candies. Without thinking much, I reached into the bowl of shelled peas. I grabbed a handful and tossed them into my mouth. The moment they touched my tongue, I knew something was wrong. They did not feel firm. They did not feel crisp. Instead, they felt soft, too soft. Not like peas, like little round things that had gone bad. I froze with my mouth closed. For one horrible second, I thought I felt movement. Not just the peas rolling around on my tongue. Movement, a faint crawling sensation. My stomach tightened. I tried to chew, but the texture made me gag. The peas collapsed between my teeth into a mushy paste. The taste spread across my mouth immediately, bitter and earthy, with only the faintest trace of sweetness underneath. It was not the clean taste of fresh peas. It tasted like damp soil, rotten leaves, and something alive that should never have been in my mouth. I spat them into my hand. Pieces of green mush stuck to my palm. Something white wriggled between them. For a second, I could not understand what I was seeing. Then my body reacted before my mind did. I jumped up, knocking one of the bowls sideways. Peas scattered across the floor, bouncing and rolling under the table. I ran to the basin and spat again and again, scraping my tongue with my fingers. I turned on the tap and shoved water into my mouth, rinsing until my throat hurt. Still, I could feel it. The crawling, the softness, the bitter taste. I spat into the sink and saw tiny pale fragments swirl down the drain. My hands began shaking. Slowly, I turned back toward the bowl. The peas sat there innocently under the evening light, bright green and round, but now I could not look at them the same way. I forced myself to walk closer. I picked up another handful, but this time I did not put them in my mouth. I looked, really looked. At first, they seemed normal. Then I saw the holes, tiny holes in the peas. Some had only one, some had several. Little dark punctures, so small I had missed them completely while shelling. I brought my hand closer to my face and felt my stomach turn. Small white larvae were crawling over the peas. They were thin and soft, almost translucent, moving slowly through the little gaps and broken skins. Some were half inside the peas, their bodies wriggling out of the holes. Others curled and stretched against my palm. Then I saw green caterpillars mixed in too, small enough to blend with the peas if you were not paying attention. My face twisted in disgust. I dropped the handful back into the bowl and stumbled away. For a moment, I could only stand there, breathing hard, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. I wanted to cry. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to tear my tongue out and wash it separately. My mother came running from the kitchen. "What happened?" she asked. I could barely speak. I pointed at the bowl. She frowned and stepped closer. At first, she looked annoyed, probably thinking I had made a mess or was being dramatic. Then she leaned over the peas. Her expression changed. She picked up one pea between her fingers, turned it, and saw the hole. A larva pushed itself halfway out, bending and curling in the air. My mother gasped and dropped it. "Throw them away," she said quickly. "All of them. Throw everything away." But I couldn't move, because I was thinking about how long I had been sitting there, how many pods I had opened, how many peas had dropped into the bowl with that neat little tack-tack sound, how many had tiny holes I never noticed, and how many times my fingers had brushed against something soft inside a pod without me realizing it. My mouth watered in that awful way it does before vomiting. I ran back to the basin and gagged until my stomach cramped. For the rest of the evening, I could not eat. My mother threw away the entire bag of peas. She washed both bowls twice with hot water and soap. She wiped the floor, the mat, the table, and even the counter where the bag had rested. She kept telling me it was fine, that sometimes vegetables from the market were spoiled inside, that I shouldn't think about it. I thought about it all night. Even after brushing my teeth 3 times, I still tasted bitterness. Even after drinking water, I still felt something moving on my tongue. When I lay in bed, I kept remembering the feeling of chewing, the way the peas burst into mush, the little white body wriggling in my hand, the tiny holes. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night with my jaw moving, slowly, softly, chewing. For a few seconds, I was too confused to react. My room was dark, the ceiling fan turned above me. My mouth was full. Something bitter spread across my tongue. I sat up so fast, my blanket fell to the floor. I spat into my hand. A single green pea landed in my palm. It had a tiny black hole in its side. Then something pale pushed its head out and began to crawl. Story 2, no one wants to find a body. Seeing a mangled corpse is enough to break something inside you. But when the body belongs to someone you once knew, someone who used to laugh, talk, draw pictures, ask you questions, it becomes a special kind of pain. A pain that doesn't feel like grief at first. It feels like your brain is trying to argue with reality. You whisper a prayer to whoever might be listening. God, the universe, death itself. Not yet. Please. Give us more time. That night, I found myself bargaining for my sister. A sister I never gave the time of day. I didn't just want more time. I needed it. I needed the chance to fix what I'd ruined. To fix us. Lucy Lou was pinned between a car and a tree, limp like a doll tossed aside. Her skin was already changing color in the cold evening air. The light behind her eyes was gone. What was left was glassy and blank, like she'd become an object. Blood trickled from the corners of her mouth. Her body was bent at an angle that didn't look human, like a toy propped up against the tree and forgotten. And next to her, on the grass, there was a single bloodied page, a crayon drawing. 2 figures holding hands. One labeled me, the other labeled Big Sister Sammy. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't cry like Caroline, whose screams sounded like they were ripping her apart from the inside. I couldn't do anything useful like Dad, who was calling for help with shaking hands. I just stood there, helpless, staring at the scene, as if my eyes could change it if I stared long enough. And underneath all of that horror, a quiet thought started repeating in my head like a chant. Not yet. Give me time. I can fix it. I should have been careful what I wished for. I didn't remember my mom. When she died, I was too young to understand what mother even meant. I only knew there was a hole in our house afterward, a quiet that no one talked about. So when Dad announced he was remarrying, it hurt in a way I didn't know how to explain. I wasn't losing my mom again. She was already gone. But it felt like Dad was moving on without me. One would think I would have directed my anger at Caroline, the woman he brought into our home. But I didn't. Not really. Caroline was strict and could be annoying, but she was also an adult. If I fought with her, Dad would step in. There would be consequences. Instead, all my loathing landed on the half-sister Caroline gave birth to, Lucy Lou. I don't even know if I truly hated her. Sometimes I think she was just an easier target. Giving Caroline a hard time meant getting scolded by Dad, but Lucy was too young to understand that I was shutting her out, too young to report it, too young to defend herself in a way that mattered. And I never did anything dramatic. I didn't beat her up. I didn't call her names to her face. I wasn't some cartoon bully. I just ignored her. I ignored her drawings. I pretended I didn't hear when she asked me to push her on the swing. I drowned out her "are we there yet" questions on every drive. I acted like she didn't exist unless someone forced me to acknowledge her. When Lucy was born, I was 6. By the time I had fully decided I didn't like her, I was 11. I kept thinking I would grow out of it. I didn't. By 16, it was just routine. We lived in the same house, but moved like strangers. Her begging to play together had stopped years earlier. She learned what I was offering, nothing. But I could tell she still wanted me. Whenever I was in the same room, she'd watch me with this hopeful look, waiting for me to glance her way. When I didn't, her shoulders would drop and she'd go back to her coloring, like she could physically feel the rejection settle into her body. At family gatherings, she was easier. Caroline bragged about Lucy's manners, and Lucy would try hard to impress. She'd serve food like a tiny waitress, collect plates, say polite words she'd clearly practiced. Sometimes she'd sneak me extra candy Grandpa slipped her, passing it under the table with a secret smile. She was a good kid, and still, when I looked at her, all I could see were Caroline's eyes staring back, piercing blue. Not my mom's, not mine, Caroline's. That alone was enough to make my skin crawl, like Lucy was proof that Dad had built a new life on top of the old one. Maybe if I hadn't been such an asshole, I could have protected her. Maybe I could have been a real big sister. About a year ago, I got handed one simple responsibility. Every day after school, Lucy got off her bus at the bottom of our road, just outside our property. Our house sat up a steep hill, a long walk with trees on either side and nothing around but countryside. Caroline always met Lucy at the stop and walked her up like a guard escorting her home. I never understood her paranoia. Nobody drove up that road. The only things it led to were our house and an abandoned junkyard farther out, buried in the countryside. No stores, no shortcuts, no neighbors, nothing. So when Caroline asked me to do it one morning, I protested. She had to work late for some conference. Dad wasn't home until evening. That left me. I argued because I didn't want to spend time with Lucy. I didn't want the responsibility. I didn't want to stand by the road like a babysitter. But I gave in because fighting was worse. At least I was used to ignoring Lucy. Lucy's excitement didn't help. She tried to hide it, but she couldn't. She followed me around while I got ready, asking questions she probably rehearsed in her head. Where will you be waiting? Will we be alone? Will you help me with homework? Can you draw with me after? I gave blunt answers, short ones, cold ones. By the time she asked the last question, she realized the change in plans didn't mean a change in us. And then she asked something that landed like a stone in my chest. Sammy, do you even like me? There was no hope in her voice, no expectation. It sounded like she'd known the answer for a long time and was only asking so she could hear it out loud. I hesitated. I wasn't ready for her to be that direct. My hesitation was all the answer she needed. She left my room without another word, and she stayed quiet for the rest of the morning. I swallowed the guilt like I always did. I wasn't obligated to like her just because we shared blood. That's what I told myself. That's what I needed to believe. After school, my friends came up to me and asked to hang out. Normally, I would have been tempted. That day, I was more than tempted. We went to the junkyard a lot. It was our place, no adults, no rules. We could smash things without consequences. We could do stupid stuff we didn't want our parents seeing. It was exciting in the bored, reckless way teenagers chase. I planned to join them after I walked Lucy home. Just drop her off, then go. But Angela started pushing. Lucy's bus route was long. Her elementary school was on the other side of town. Our house, the last stop. That meant Lucy always got home later than we did. Angela had a date across town by 4, and she didn't want to wait around. She said we hadn't hung out in forever. She pressured me, and then everyone else piled on because the group wanted both of us there. It didn't take much to convince me. The junkyard was only a 15-minute walk. If anything happened, I'd be close. And really, what could happen? The road was empty. Lucy knew the way home. It was one straight path up a hill. She'd done it 100 times with Caroline. I texted Lucy on her little flip phone. She didn't have a smartphone, just something cheap for emergencies. I told her where I'd be. She didn't reply, but we got to the junkyard and lost track of time the way you do when you're trying to make a moment last. We smashed already broken cars, climbed piles of metal, threw stuff at unstable stacks to see if we could make them collapse. We kept telling ourselves we'd leave soon, right after one more try, one more hit, one more stupid dare. It felt like nothing, until Caroline called. 6:47 p.m. I remember the exact time like it's burned into my skin. Angela had already left with a couple of others. I'd just watched Simon chug a bottle of beer like he wanted to prove something. The phone vibrating in my hand felt unreal, like it belonged to someone else's life. I told everyone to shut up and answered, ready with an excuse in case Lucy had complained. "Hey, Caroline, what? Is Lucy Lou still with you?" Her voice had panic under it, the kind she was trying to keep contained. I froze. "No," I said carefully. "Why?" "Then where is she?" "She isn't home." The silence that followed gave me away. Caroline's voice sharpened, demanding. "You walked her home, didn't you?" I looked at my friends. They shrugged, suddenly not amused anymore. "No," I admitted, "I didn't. I heard a small sound on the other end of the line like a gasp. Not surprise. Confirmation. Like this was what she'd feared all along. She couldn't have gone far, I tried. I told her to call me if... "Get home now," Caroline snapped. "We need to look for her." Before the call ended, I heard Dad's voice in the background. Then Caroline started sobbing so hard her words turned into noise. I left the junkyard feeling guilty, but still clinging to denial. Lucy was annoying, sure, but she wasn't stupid. She'd be somewhere close. Maybe she'd wandered off looking at butterflies. Maybe she'd sat by the side of the road drawing. She loved drawing everything. It had only been a couple hours. The bus would have arrived around 3:30. She'd be fine. They're overreacting, I told myself. Then I heard Caroline scream. It wasn't a normal scream. It was a sound that stripped all meaning out of the world. A sound that only comes from someone who has just met a reality they can't survive. I ran toward it. What should have been a 5-minute walk became a sprint. My lungs burned. My legs felt too heavy. The air felt sharp. Then I saw the car, Lucy's head barely visible over the hood. The car was huge compared to her small body. The engine was still running, which meant the driver had left fast. Too fast. Like they abandoned it. It was an old vehicle, rusted, a model I didn't recognize. No license plate. But none of that mattered. Lucy was pinned between metal and wood, her body limp, her skin changing color already. Caroline was making broken prayers to a God who wasn't answering. Dad was shaking and trying to call for help, and I was bargaining. "Please, give me time to fix it." I don't know when I dropped to my knees. I only remember staring at Lucy's face and thinking, she's just a kid. She sat in school all day fantasizing about spending time with me, and I left her alone to die. What were her last thoughts? That I abandoned her? That I hated her? But I didn't hate her, not really. I was just angry at everything, and she was easy. Now she was gone, and it was my fault. Then movement caught my eye. Her chest, hidden by the car, seemed to rise slightly. It was so small I thought my brain was making it up. Then I saw a faint cloud of breath leave her mouth. "Holy shit," I said, the words tearing out of me. "Dad, Dad, she's breathing. Tell them she's breathing." I scrambled to her side. Her eyes were open but empty, like she wasn't awake. Still, her breathing was there. tiny, shallow inhales and exhales. I grabbed her hand. It felt so cold. I told her I was there. I told her everything would be okay. I promised I'd be better. I promised I'd draw with her and play with her and do anything she wanted. I promised I wouldn't abandon her again. The doctors called it a miracle. They said the way the car was positioned kept most of her blood inside her body. They said her organs stayed packed in place, preventing major internal bleeding. A nurse even said, like she was talking about lottery numbers, that for her size, she should have died on impact, but she got lucky. But her spine didn't get lucky. Lucy Lou lived, but she would never walk again. Police asked questions. So did social workers. So did everyone who wanted to find a simple answer for something that didn't have one. Angela said she saw Lucy get off the bus like normal and start walking up the hill. After that, nobody knew. The car wasn't linked to anyone. No plate, no DNA inside, no ID. The keys were still in the ignition like the driver had just stepped out and vanished. They never found the owner. I didn't have energy for a witch hunt. While a part of me wanted someone to punish, the only monster I could blame was myself. If I'd walked Lucy home, none of it would have happened. Caroline seemed to believe the same. Sometimes I'd catch her glaring at me, and she didn't bother hiding it. She rarely said anything, but the silence was loud. If Lucy Lou had died, our family would have shattered. Dad had already lost a wife. Losing his daughter would have hollowed him out completely. Caroline kept calling it an act of God, but after what came next, I started to believe something else. God doesn't negotiate. God doesn't hand out second chances like candy. Something else does. When Lucy Lou woke up in the hospital, I couldn't face her at first. In the past, I avoided her because I didn't want to see her. Now, I avoided her because I couldn't stand the guilt in my own chest. It wasn't until she demanded I come into her room that I finally did. Caroline and Dad stepped out to speak with a doctor, leaving me alone with Lucy. I stood by the door like a stranger, unsure what version of myself to be. Then Lucy held out a drawing like nothing had happened. "I drew one for you before, but I lost it in the accident," she said brightly. "But I made an even better one." She handed me the page. It was one of her simple pictures, a little better than stick figures. I could tell who was who. Dad, Caroline, me. We all had wings and floated around another shape. "Why do we have wings?" I asked. "Because you guys are my angels," she said, smiling huge. "You saved me." I'll be honest, it didn't look like her. It was a scribbled red and blue blob. She nodded. "That's me. Why do you look like that?" I asked, trying to laugh, trying to make it normal. She answered like it was obvious. "Because I died." The word hit me hard. She said it casually, like she was telling me she fell asleep. "But Lucy," I whispered, "you lived." She didn't respond. She just smiled at me like she knew something I didn't. My first instinct was to show the doctor, to explain that she wasn't processing the trauma well. But she looked at me with such hopeful anticipation, waiting to see what I'd do with her gift, that I folded it and put it in my pocket. "I'll keep it," I told her. "It'll be a good luck charm." Her face lit up. She leaned forward and hugged me. I froze for a second, then hugged her back, and my eyes started watering before I could stop them. "I'll be better this time," I whispered into her hair. "I promise." The accident happened in early fall, and she didn't come home until deep into winter. I visited after school and drew with her. Tried to make her laugh, tried to be the sister she deserved, even though the guilt never loosened. One day, I convinced her doctor and Caroline that it would be safe to take her outside. The hospital had a small playground for younger patients, slides, a swing set. I thought fresh air might help. I pushed Lucy on the swing, and she laughed. It sounded real. It sounded like life. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Caroline watching from a hospital window across the road. Even from far away, I could feel the conflict in her. She didn't trust me. She probably never would again. But after a moment, she turned away, as if the sight of Lucy laughing was enough to soften her. I looked back at Lucy and realized I'd stopped pushing. Lucy was chewing on the metal chains of the swing. "Lucy Lou," I said, startled. "What are you doing?" "It tastes nice," she said. It was strange, too old for that kind of behavior. I tried to smile like it was just a kid being weird. "You shouldn't," I said lightly. "Your tongue can freeze to metal when it's cold." She studied my face like she was trying to decide if I was lying. "Don't worry, Sammy," she said. "I'll stop. It won't keep me warm anyway." The words didn't feel like a normal kid comment. They landed wrong. Lucy started talking about being cold constantly. Even after she came home, she always wanted the fire going. Even with heaters and blankets, it was never enough. Then she developed a habit that made my blood run cold. One night, I got up to use the bathroom and noticed Lucy's bedroom door cracked open. I looked inside. Her bed was empty. Her wheelchair was folded beside it. Panic hit me immediately. She couldn't just wander off. Not on her own. I went to wake our parents, but before I did, I glanced out her window and saw Dad's car in the driveway. There was movement inside. Lucy. I threw on slippers and ran outside. When I opened the car door, Lucy was curled in the back seat, asleep like she belonged there. Her knees were scraped raw. There were scuff marks on them, like she'd dragged herself across the ground to get outside. "How did you get here?" I whispered. She yawned and blinked at me as if I was the one being weird. "Why are you out here?" "Why are you out here?" I hissed back, trying to keep my voice low. She shrugged. "It's warm." "The car is warm?" I whispered. It was freezing outside. She nodded like it was the simplest fact in the world. "It's warm." The doctor had warned that trauma could cause strange behavior. Usually people avoided reminders of the accident. Cars, roads, anything that triggered the memory. Yet Lucy was crawling into a car at night like it was a safe place. "You'll freeze," I said. "Come inside." "But it's warm." I didn't know what to do. I brought out a blanket, thinking I'd wrap her up and carry her back in. But when I returned, she looked at me and said, "Stay with me." I tried to argue. Then I saw her face, hopeful, insistent, like she was afraid to be alone. So I climbed in. We lay awkwardly, feet near each other's heads, trying to fit. She pulled the blanket over herself more than me. She wrapped her arms around my legs like I was a heater. "You all right?" I whispered. "You're warm," she said. Her eyes in the darkness looked too bright, too blue. I stroked her hair. "Good night, Lucy Lou." That night I slept deeply, the kind of sleep I hadn't had in months. It felt peaceful, and I told myself maybe this was healing. Maybe she just needed comfort. Maybe I was finally doing something right? Caroline did not agree. She found us in the morning and erupted. Called us stupid. Said we could have died out there. Dad nearly called the police because he'd thought Lucy was missing again. I explained what happened. Caroline called me an idiot, and she wasn't wrong. But Lucy needed me, and her needs felt louder than Caroline's anger. We got better at sneaking out. Not every night, but often enough that it became a routine again. Sometimes we built little blanket forts in the back seat with flashlights, and she'd draw while I handed her crayons. Those nights became some of my happiest memories, which still feels wrong to admit. For a while, Lucy seemed like a normal kid again, just one who couldn't walk. Then she went back to school. We'd considered holding her back a year. Caroline thought it might be easier. But Lucy begged to return. She missed her friends. She was bored, so she went. At first, her teachers said she was doing well. Then, I got a call that changed everything. Dad normally picked Lucy up after work, but one day he couldn't and asked me to do it. So I left my class early and took the bus across town, feeling awkward sitting among younger kids. When I arrived, Lucy's teacher, Ms. Gracie, was waiting for me. Her face was tight with anxiety. "Are you here for Lucy?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "I'm Sammy, her sister." Miss Gracie looked me over like she was trying to decide if I was old enough for what she was about to say. Then she pulled me aside. "I think you need to bring her to a hospital." Lucy sat behind her in her wheelchair, drawing like always. She looked fine. What? Why? I asked. Miss Gracie struggled to speak at first, like her own brain didn't want to say it out loud. We were doing a science activity with circuits, she said. We asked the kids to clean up, and some batteries went missing. My confusion must have shown on my face because she rushed on. I asked Lucy if she knew where they went, and she said she did. I asked where, and she said she ate them. I just stared at her. Miss Gracie kept apologizing, talking about how the nurse left early, how at first she thought it was just a kid saying something random. But another child claimed they saw Lucy do it. We called Dad. He reacted the same way I did, disbelief. Lucy repeated it calmly when we asked her, yes, she ate them, like she was saying she ate a sandwich. At the hospital, scans showed nothing. No batteries, no damage, nothing at all. Relief should have come, but instead it was replaced by something worse. Why would she say it? The doctor recommended therapy. Maybe it was attention-seeking. Maybe it was trauma. Maybe it was a coping behavior. Lucy seemed unbothered. If she was lying, she didn't care. And then it kept happening. Calls from school, batteries missing at home, remotes dead, smoke detectors silent, flashlights useless, toys mysteriously drained. Every time Lucy admitted it. Every time scans showed nothing. She was always cold, even as summer came. She stared into the fire like it was a language she understood. Sometimes she'd sit for hours watching flames dance unblinking, and when you tried to pull her away, it felt like talking to a wall. We started locking batteries up, hiding them, keeping them in places she couldn't reach. They still disappeared. When we locked them up properly, Dad's office computer was torn apart instead. Caroline began to unravel in quiet ways. She'd pick at the couch arm until the fabric shredded, staring into space like she wasn't fully there anymore. She took time off work to watch Lucy, and it only made her anxiety worse. The bond Caroline used to have with Lucy, this easy, wordless closeness, turned into a cold distance. They'd sit in the same room and barely speak. Lucy didn't seem to notice Caroline looked like she couldn't recognize her own child anymore. Dad tried to keep us together with jokes and family plans, but I could see his light dimming too. He looked tired all the time, like he was carrying something he couldn't say out loud. After too many hospital visits, the staff stopped taking us seriously. They told Caroline to come back when there was a real problem. Until then, get a child psychologist. That day in the hospital parking lot, Caroline and Dad fought outside the car while Lucy and I sat inside pretending not to hear. Caroline sounded like she was boiling over into tears. Lucy stared straight ahead like none of it mattered. I couldn't take it anymore. Lucy, I asked quietly, why do you keep lying? I'm not, she said. I did eat them. I believed her and I didn't know why. So I asked, why? She smiled wide. They keep me warm. I hugged her, trying to swallow my panic. Her skin against mine made my stomach turn. It was cold. Cold like the night she died. Then came the night everything broke. I heard screeching outside my window. Lucy had gotten herself into the car again, even though the keys were hidden. Caroline found her first and tried to pull her out. Lucy fought like an animal, nails digging into Caroline's face, thrashing with a strength that didn't belong to her small body. Dad came running. I followed. Caroline was screaming at Lucy to come inside. Lucy just kept saying no over and over. Then Lucy leaned in and whispered something into Caroline's ear. Caroline went white. Her whole body stopped for one horrifying second. Then rage took her. Who are you? Caroline screamed. Where is my daughter? Tell me where she is. Dad begged her to stop shaking Lucy, but Caroline didn't hear him. Lucy's cries weren't emotional. They were high and dry and animal, like survival noise. Dad dragged Caroline away, and Lucy fell into the dirt. I scooped Lucy up and carried her inside, locked us in the bathroom, and slid down the door with her in my arms. Lucy looked completely unfazed. Like nothing had happened, she patted my head like she was comforting me. Don't worry, Sammy, she said, smiling. I'm okay. I stared at her. Lucy, what did you say to your mom? She didn't blink. I asked her if she was going to kill me like she killed our siblings. My breath caught. What siblings? We never got to meet them, Lucy said, still smiling. Something clicked in my head, old memories I'd never understood. Caroline going to the hospital a lot before Lucy was born. The praying, the sadness, the way the house felt heavy in those years. Lucy wasn't their first pregnancy. How do you know that? I whispered. Lucy just stared at me with those bright eyes. Dad knocked and told me it was safe to come out. Caroline left to cool off at Grandpa's house. Dad didn't linger with Lucy. He didn't fuss. He asked if she was okay like it was a formality. Then he focused on me, asking if I was rattled, if anything happened, if I was okay. He offered to sleep in my room like he used to when I was little. I told him Lucy needed him more. He didn't answer. I realized then he didn't believe Caroline was wrong. Dad? I started. Good night, Sam, he said, and walked away. After that, the dread in the house grew thicker every day. Lucy's skin grew paler, with a bluish tint. Her eyes reflected light at night like a cat's. Dead birds started appearing, drained, lifeless, scattered in places they shouldn't be. Batteries vanished in greater numbers. Then the car battery, then Caroline's car, then the oil tank, like the house itself was being stripped down piece by piece. One night I found Lucy's bed empty and the cars empty too. I ran inside, panicked, and found my parents sitting at the kitchen counter like they'd been waiting for me. Where's Lucy? I demanded. Gone, Caroline said without looking up. She left. She can't leave, I snapped. Her wheelchair is still here. Caroline finally lifted her head. Her expression was flat. I doubt she crawled. My stomach turned. We have to find her. A priest is coming tomorrow, Caroline said. A priest? I barked. She's sick. She needs help. Caroline gave a small, bitter laugh. That's not her. She's changed. She almost died, I shouted. Of course she changed. Dad dumped a cardboard box onto the counter. Dozens of broken devices spilled out, remotes, toys, flashlights, phones, anything that could be emptied. This isn't normal, he said, voice shaking. At night, she just stands at the foot of my bed, smiling. Caroline's voice was cold. Whatever that thing is, it took my daughter. If it never comes back, so be it. I couldn't breathe. You're abandoning her. Caroline's eyes snapped to me. You don't get to lecture me about my kid when you left her to die in the first place. She slammed the counter. Her knuckles cracked. Dad didn't defend me. He didn't defend Lucy. I stood there with nothing to say because she was right, so I said the only thing I could. It's my fault, I whispered. That's why I won't leave her alone again. I ran out barefoot into the night, ignoring the rocks cutting my feet. Dad shouted for me to stop. I kept running. I didn't know exactly where Lucy went, but I had one place in my mind like a magnet, the junkyard. By the time I got there, my feet were bleeding. I called for Lucy Lou until my throat hurt. I searched through piles of wrecked cars, through twisted metal, through shadows that looked like bodies for a second before turning into nothing. Every time I found nothing, I felt myself shrinking. Then I heard metal clack behind me. I turned and saw her. She was silhouetted on top of a pile of crushed vehicles, crouched low like an animal. The only clear thing were her eyes, bright turquoise, dilated, shining in the darkness. In her hands, she clutched something that looked like car innards, wires and guts. Her fingers looked too long. Her knuckles pushed up under the skin like bones trying to escape. Her spine looked wrong beneath her torn shirt, ridged and sharp. I told myself it was the dark, the angle, my fear, but it felt like I was looking into death. Lucy Lou, I said, forcing my voice steady, can we please go home? She climbed down the pile slowly, one wreck at a time. Each movement seemed calculated and jerky at once. I could hear popping sounds, like joints resetting. I braced myself for what I'd see in moonlight. But when she stepped into the light, she looked like my Lucy again, dirty with oil, wiping it from her face as it dripped from her chin. Her usual smile was gone. Her expression was flat. "You want me to come home?" she asked. I held out my hand. She hesitated, like she didn't understand, then took it. We walked home in silence. Back at the house, my parents stayed in their room. I brought Lucy to my room, made a little space for her mattress, tried to build a blanket fort like we used to. I set a flashlight beside her, batteries still inside. She looked surprised. "Lucy," I whispered, "I'm here if you need me." She lay down. I tried to sleep. I couldn't. I lay staring at the ceiling while the pain in my feet throbbed. I thought about the priest, about Caroline and Dad being convinced Lucy was gone, about the way Lucy had looked on top of the metal pile. I wanted to believe the real Lucy was still in there, because I'd seen glimpses of her. The way she lit up when drawing, the way she hugged me in the car, the way she said she was happy with me. Then I looked down and saw her eyes peering over my bed frame. Unblinking, unmoving, locked on me. Blood stained my sheets. It wasn't mine. It was on her hands. "What are you doing?" I whispered. I could only see her eyes. "It's warm," she said. I swallowed hard and forced myself to remember who I was talking to. "Sleep well, Lucy Lou." "Night, Sammy," she said softly. "Love you." It was the first time she'd ever said it. Despite everything, I smiled. "Love you too, Luke." I fell asleep. I woke up to a muffled crash. Then I heard my father scream. I shot out of bed. Lucy wasn't on her mattress. No. She wouldn't. I ran down the hallway so fast I slipped on the carpet, catching myself on the wall. I reached my parents' door and froze with my hand on the handle. Dread locked my joints. Then I opened it. I stood there watching the worst version of my life loop itself back to the beginning. The bedroom was painted red, not splattered, painted like someone had used flesh to decorate. The family portrait by the bed was shattered on the floor. Caroline's head was bent back at an impossible angle. Her neck snapped. A deep cut exposed her throat. Her eyes were closed like she'd been asleep. Dad was upright in bed, but his jaw had been torn open, the lower teeth hanging down by strings of flesh. The terror on his face was the kind of terror that stays printed into nightmares. And on top of him stood Lucy, or whatever was wearing her. Her skin was icy blue. Veins pulsed along her spine, her legs, once broken, now bent the wrong way. She dragged long nails over Dad's neck, and a long, spiraling tongue unrolled to lick up blood like it was water. Then those eyes turned to me. They locked on me. She stepped off the bed. I backed away and fell, scrambling on the floor like I could crawl out of fate. "Lucy," I begged. "Please." I didn't know where to run. Even if I escaped, she was all I had left. And some sick part of me still believed I was supposed to fix this, that I had been given time for a reason. I pulled the drawing from my pocket with shaking hands, the one I'd kept like a charm, the one I thought might matter. "Look," I choked out. "It's us. It's me and Dad and your mom. Please, Lucy, I promised I'd be better. I'm not abandoning you. We can fix this. Please." She stopped at my feet and stared down at me. Her body cracked and convulsed until it returned to the shape of a little girl, almost normal, almost Lucy, except for her eyes. Then she spoke, voice rough and wet. "You." She stared at me with an expression I didn't understand at first. Nose wrinkled, brows tightened, a look that wasn't anger. It was pity. She crouched, bones creaking, and lifted my chin with 2 fingers, so I had to look into her face. "You still think I am her?" she asked softly. My stomach dropped through the floor. "I guess you wouldn't know the difference, would you?" she whispered. "If you never knew her." Her nails slid under my eyelids. I felt the pressure first, then the pain, then the horrible stretching as she carefully worked my eye loose. I couldn't even scream, my mind detached from my body as if it couldn't survive being present for it. Then it snapped free. She swallowed it like it meant nothing, and she left. I don't remember moving after that. I only remember sitting in a house full of bodies, staring at what remained of my family, unable to make any sound at all. The priest found me the next morning. I hadn't moved all night. I never spoke again after that. This is the only way I can communicate now. Broken thoughts and text, trying to arrange the pieces into something that makes sense. The police suspected me at first. They always do when the only survivor is standing there silent. But the priest apparently told them details before I could. Details about Lucy, about things no one should have known. Eventually, they stopped treating me like a suspect. I went to live with my grandparents. I don't think they know what to do with me. I don't think anyone would. Lucy Liu was never found. The police assumed she died too, somewhere out in the woods or the junkyard, and that her body just hadn't turned up. They weren't searching for a person. They were searching for remains. Nobody wants to believe a little girl could do what happened in that bedroom. They decided my parents must have been influenced by the wrong people, that they got scared and started talking to someone who pushed demon ideas, that it spiraled into violence, that grief made everyone crazy. And because I can't speak, I can't defend my parents. I can't tell anyone what I saw. Not that they would believe me anyway. I don't even know what I believe anymore. I only know that I was wrong about everything I ever thought I knew. What keeps me awake even now is the question I can't answer. What happened to the real Lucy Liu? Did she pass on when she should have that first night under the car? Did she get peace? Or is she still trapped somewhere, pinned inside whatever took her place, watching through those bright blue eyes while it pretends to be warm and loved? I still keep the drawing in my pocket, the one she gave me in the hospital. It's in my hand as I type this. I know it's wrong. I know it might mean nothing. But I can't let it go. I threw away so many of Lucy's real drawings when she was alive. I didn't keep any of them. I didn't think they mattered. Maybe that's why it kept me alive. Maybe the cruelty that fed it was already inside me, and it wanted me to sit with it forever. All I can do now is mourn a sister I never bothered to know, while praying that somewhere, somehow, she isn't still out there in the dark, cold, and hungry, waiting for someone to finally understand she's gone. Story 3. I know people always say spiders are useful. They eat flies. They kill mosquitoes. They help with pests. They're good for the house, or the garden, or the environment, or whatever else people say when they want to act calm and reasonable about something that has too many legs. I don't care. I hate them. I have always hated them. I don't mean I dislike them in a normal way. I mean I hate the way they move. I hate how quiet they are. I hate how they can be in the corner of a room for hours without you noticing, waiting there like they own the place. I hate how fast they become once they know you've seen them. I hate that their legs bend in too many directions. I hate the fat ones most of all, the ones with round bodies that look too heavy for those thin little legs. Last night, I found one in my shower. I had just finished brushing my teeth and was getting ready for bed. The bathroom light was too bright. The mirror was fogged around the edges, and the shower curtain was half open. I glanced down toward the tub for no reason and saw it near the drain. A big, dark spider. It sat there with its legs spread wide right beside the metal drain cover, like it had been waiting for me. Its body was thick and shiny, not huge like something from a movie, but big enough that my stomach dropped the moment I saw it. For a second, neither of us moved. Then one of its front legs twitched. That was enough. I grabbed the shower head from its holder and turned the water as hot as it would go. The pipes knocked once inside the wall, and then steaming water blasted out. I aimed straight at the spider. It tried to run. It only made it a few inches. The water hit it hard, pinning it against the tub. Its legs curled inward almost immediately. It flipped once, twitched, and then stopped moving. I kept spraying it. Maybe 10 seconds after it went still, I was still standing there holding the shower head with both hands, watching the water beat against its little black body. Just making sure, when I was certain it was dead, I nudged it toward the drain with a stream of water. It caught on the edge for a second, then slipped through and disappeared into the dark. I turned off the shower. For a while, I stood there listening to the drain gurgle. Then I went to bed. I don't know what woke me up. At first, I thought it was just the itch. It was around 3 in the morning, though I only know that because I checked my phone later. The room was dark and the house was quiet except for the low hum of the fan near my bed. I was half asleep, lying on my side, when I felt something deep inside my right ear. Not a normal itch. Not the kind you can scratch and forget about. This was deeper, farther in. Like something was tickling the inside of my head. I rubbed my ear against the pillow. Then I scratched at it with my finger. That only made it worse. The feeling moved away from the pressure, then came back again. I groaned and rolled over. For a minute, I tried to ignore it. Then I felt movement. Tiny movement. A slow scrape, then another. My eyes snapped open. I sat up so fast, I nearly fell off the bed. Something was in my ear. That was my first thought, and it was so clear and horrible that it didn't feel like panic yet. It felt like fact. Something was inside my ear. I stayed frozen for a second, listening to my own breathing. The itch returned. Then came the scraping again, light and delicate, like tiny legs brushing against skin that should never be touched. I slapped my hand over my ear and almost screamed. The feeling stopped. Then it moved deeper. I jumped out of bed and ran to the bathroom, hitting my shoulder against the doorframe on the way in. I turned on the light and the brightness stabbed my eyes. I leaned close to the mirror, tilting my head, trying to look into my ear. At first, I saw nothing. Just the curve of my ear, the dark opening, the skin flushed red from scratching. Then something black shifted just inside the canal. I stopped breathing. A thin leg moved. I made a sound I did not recognize. It was not a scream exactly. It was a choking, broken noise that came from somewhere lower than my throat. I stumbled back from the mirror, then lurched forward again because I needed to see it. I needed to know what it was. I needed it out. I opened the medicine cabinet so hard the mirror banged against the wall. Tweezers. I grabbed them with shaking hands and leaned toward the mirror again. My right eye was wide, my mouth hanging open, my face already wet with sweat. "Come on," I whispered. "Come on, come on." I slid the tweezers carefully toward my ear. The second the metal touched the edge of my ear canal, the thing pulled deeper. I felt its body move. I felt its legs scrape inward. I dropped the tweezers into the sink and screamed. For the next few minutes, I did everything wrong. I know that now. I poured warm water into my ear. Nothing came out. I tilted my head and shook it hard enough to make myself dizzy. Nothing. I grabbed rubbing alcohol and poured that in too, hissing through my teeth as it burned the irritated skin. For one hopeful second, the movement stopped, deeper. I searched online with shaking fingers, typing so badly autocorrect barely understood me. Something in earbug, how to get out. One result said oil could suffocate insects. I grabbed cooking oil from the kitchen and poured it into my ear over the bathroom sink. I waited. Nothing came out, no spider, no dead bug, no little black body floating in the oil. Instead, I felt it move lower, not outward, lower, behind my jaw. I froze. There are moments when fear becomes too large for the body to react to. It stops being panic and turns into a kind of empty disbelief. That was what happened to me. I stood in front of the mirror with oil dripping down my neck, one hand pressed to the side of my face, and felt something crawl through a place it should not have been able to reach. It moved under my skin, slowly, carefully. I could feel each tiny point of pressure as its legs pushed from beneath the flesh near my ear and down toward my jaw. My skin tightened over it. A small raised shape traveled along the line of my jaw, visible in the mirror. I watched it happen. I watched something inside me move. No, I whispered. The bulge slipped beneath my jaw and into my throat. My breath hitched. The left side of my neck pushed outward. Not much at first, just a small rise under the skin. Then it became clearer, a shifting lump moving slowly down and across. Little points pressed outward around it like the tips of legs testing the inside of my skin. I gagged. I grabbed at my throat with both hands, trying to pinch it through the skin. The second I did, it moved faster. It shot upward, across my neck, under my chin, then into my face. I screamed through clenched teeth because I was afraid to open my mouth. That sounds stupid, but at that moment it made perfect sense. If I opened my mouth, maybe it would come out. Or maybe something else would. Maybe there were more of them waiting inside my throat. Maybe the whole inside of me was full of legs. The thing crawled beneath my lower lip. I watched the skin bulge as it moved from one side of my mouth to the other. My lips twitched against my will. I slapped both hands over them and sobbed. It went into my cheek. I could see it there clearly, traveling under the skin like a trapped insect beneath a sheet. The shape was small, but the movement was unmistakable. Slow when I stayed still. Fast when I tried to touch it. I pressed my palm hard against my cheek. The bulge darted away, up, over the bridge of my nose. For one horrible second, I saw one thin black leg push from inside my nostril, then vanish again. I stumbled back and hit the bathroom wall. My reflection looked like someone else. Eyes huge, face pale, hair stuck to my forehead with sweat, oil shining down my neck, one cheek swollen and twitching from the thing moving underneath. Then it went behind my right eye. The pain was instant. Not sharp at first. Pressure. Deep pressure. Like someone had placed the thumb behind my eyeball and started pushing from the inside. I grabbed the sink with both hands. My knees bent. My vision in that eye blurred, then cleared, then blurred again. The pressure pulsed every few seconds. Testing. That was the word that came to me. It was testing the way out. I could feel it shifting behind the eye socket, tiny legs scraping against something soft and impossible. My right eye watered heavily. Tears ran down one side of my face. The eye itself felt too full, like it was being slowly inflated. I wanted to dig it out. That thought came so suddenly and strongly that I had to throw the tweezers across the bathroom before I could grab them again. They hit the wall and clattered behind the toilet. I backed away from the mirror, shaking. Call someone, I thought. Hospital, emergency room. But how do you explain that? How do you call an operator and say there is a spider behind my eye, and it entered through my ear after I boiled one alive in the shower drain? How do you say that without sounding insane? The pressure pulsed again. My vision flashed white. I sank to the bathroom floor and cried with both hands over my face. For a few minutes, I stayed like that. I don't know how long. Long enough for the oil to drip from my ear onto my shirt. Long enough for the bathroom light to start buzzing overhead. Long enough for my right eye to twitch so hard it felt like it was trying to blink in a different rhythm from the left. Then I heard something from the shower, a faint tapping. I lowered my hands. The sound came again. Tick, tick, like tiny nails against plastic. I turned my head slowly. The shower curtain was still half open, exactly as I had left it the night before. The tub was empty. The drain sat in the center, dark and wet. The pressure behind my eye eased for 1 second. Then I heard the tapping again. From inside the drain, I crawled toward the tub because some sick part of me needed to see. My body begged me not to. Every nerve screamed to get out of the bathroom, out of the house, into the street. Anywhere but closer. But I looked. I leaned over the edge of the tub and stared down into the drain. At first, I saw only darkness. Then something moved. A leg appeared between the metal slits. Thin, black, jointed. Then another, then another. More legs pressed up from beneath the drain cover, feeling blindly at the air, trying to find a way through. My breath caught in my throat. The thing behind my eye began to push again, harder this time. The drain clicked softly as the legs below it multiplied, filling the gaps, scraping at the metal from underneath. And from somewhere inside my head, behind my right eye, I felt an answering twitch. Story 4, the floor feels colder tonight than it normally does. I know that sounds like a small thing to notice, but when you spend enough time lying on the ground, you start to learn its moods. You learn which tiles hold the cold longest. You learn which cracks collect dust. You learn which spots hurt your hip if you stay too long. Tonight, the white and blue tiles beneath me feel almost frozen. They scatter across the kitchen floor in a pattern I still cannot recognize, even though I have stared at them for hours. Little squares, blue, white, then a place where one tile was replaced years ago with a slightly different shade. My eyes keep trying to make a picture out of them. A face, a hand, a door, anything, but there is nothing there. Only tiles, only cold, only me. The bottle in my hand is almost empty. I lift it slowly and drink the last of it before the morning light breaks through the window. It burns all the way down, but I welcome the burn. The burn is familiar, honest. It does exactly what I expect it to do. Unlike everything else in this house, I close my eyes for a moment, hoping the dark behind my eyelids will stay still. It does not. I hear the shoes again. Tap, 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 somewhere down the hall. Small and careful at first, then louder. Tap, tap, tap. I press the empty bottle against my chest and breathe through my nose. Not now. Please, not now. But the sun is coming. I can feel it before I see it. The house changes with morning. The walls turn pale. The shadows thin. The floor grows clearer beneath my face. Soon the world will expect me to stand up and be a man again. I hate mornings most. At night, a person is allowed to be broken. At night, no one asks why you are sitting on the kitchen floor with a bottle in your hand, staring at tiles like they might explain something. At night, grief feels almost natural. Morning is different. Morning demands movement. Morning demands showers, clothes, keys, work, smiles, and lies. The light comes too soon. I push myself upright with a groan. My back aches. My knees pop. My mouth tastes like old alcohol and shame. The bottle rolls away from my hand and knocks softly against the cabinet. For a second, I listen. The tapping has stopped. That should make me feel better. It does not. It only means they are waiting. I walk to the bathroom with my head down, always down. My eyes stay on my feet, on the hallway floor, on the little scratches in the wood. I know every inch of this house now from the waist down. I know the grain of the floorboards. I know the loose nail near the bathroom door. I know the dark stain beside the wall where someone once dropped coffee. I do not know the walls anymore. I do not know the pictures. I do not know the mirror. I cannot look up. The bathroom tiles are cold under my feet. I turn on the shower and wait for the water to run ice cold. I never touch the hot tap anymore. The doctor says cold showers are good for the body, good for the nerves, good for waking up. He has no idea. The cold is not medicine. It is the only thing sharp enough to cut through the numbness. I step into the shower and let the water strike my skin. The shock nearly takes my breath away. It hits my shoulders, my chest, my back, running down me in freezing rivers. My muscles tighten. My hands curl into fists. For a few seconds, I feel something almost like being alive. Pain is simple. Pain does not ask questions. I stand there for as long as I can. 10 minutes. That is my limit. After that, I am shaking too badly to continue. I turn off the water and reach blindly for the towel. I keep my head down while I dry myself. I watch drops of water fall from my hair and hit the bath mat. I watch my toes curl against the floor. I do not look at the mirror. I never look at the mirror, because the mirror would show me the man I hate most. It would show me his wet hair, his tired eyes, his gray skin, his mouth that forgot how to smile properly. It would show me the man who did this, the man who made the choices, the man who took everything from himself and then still had the cruelty to keep breathing. Why did you do this? The question rises inside me like sickness. Why did you choose that night? Why did you take them? Why did you take my heart from me and leave the rest? I grip the towel so hard my fingers hurt. No, not now. If I start thinking, I will not stop, and if I stop moving, I will never leave this house. The tapping begins again, far away at first, down the hall. Tap, tap, tap. Those little shoes. Those awful little shoes. They haunt my dreams. They haunt my mornings. They haunt the space between one breath and the next. Sometimes I hear them when I am at work, clicking across the office floor behind me. Sometimes I hear them in the supermarket aisle. Sometimes I hear them from the back seat of my car. But they are loudest here, because this is where they belong. I leave the bathroom and go to the bedroom. The door is open. I do not remember leaving it open. I keep my eyes on the floor as I enter. The bedroom carpet is worn down in a path from the doorway to the dresser. My feet know that path. They could walk it without me. I move carefully, watching the fibers bend under my weight. I do not look at the bed. I cannot. Even with my eyes down, I know it is there. I can feel it like a wound in the room. The bed is where I refuse to sleep. The bed still holds the shapes, two deep pockets on one side and the other. One where I used to lie. One where she used to lie. And between them, near the edge, a smaller dip where a little body used to climb in during storms or bad dreams or mornings when she wanted cartoons before breakfast. Those imprints should have faded by now. They have not. I changed the sheets once. Only once. The shapes came back before nightfall. Now I sleep where I can. The couch. The kitchen floor. Sometimes the hallway when I do not make it far enough. Anywhere except that bed. Love lived there. Now it stares at me. I dress with my head down. Underwear, socks, trousers, shirt, belt. My hands move slowly, stupidly. Sometimes I forget buttons. Sometimes I wear two different socks. No one at work says anything anymore. They only glance at me and then look away. People are kind when they are afraid of saying the wrong thing, or when they are afraid of you. I take my medicine from the nightstand, not the pills the doctor gave me. Those sit untouched in the drawer. My real medicine is in the small bottle beside the lamp. Clear liquid gold. It catches the morning light even though I try not to look directly at it. I twist off the cap and swallow enough to steady my hands. It burns. It helps. It ruins me. All three things can be true. The hallway waits outside the bedroom. It seems longer every day. That is not a metaphor. I know what a hallway should look like. I know how many steps it used to take from the bedroom to the stairs. 12 if I walked normally, 10 if I was in a hurry, 14 if she was in front of me, moving slowly in the morning with her sleepy little feet. Now it takes more. Some mornings it takes 20. Some mornings I feel like I could walk for an hour and never reach the end. I step into the hall with my head down. The hardwood stretches before me, brown. Or is it red? I focus on the floor because focusing helps. I ask myself questions. What color is the wood? What type? How many knots can I see? How many circles inside the grain? How many scratches? Which board creaks? Which board bends? Do not look up. Do not look at the walls. Do not look toward the sound. Tap, tap, tap. Behind me now, closer than before. My back goes stiff. The shoes follow me down the hall. Small steps. Patient steps. A child's steps. I keep walking. Tap, tap, tap. They are right behind me now, close enough that I can almost feel the air move around my legs. My eyes blur with tears. I'm sorry, I whisper. The tapping stops. For 1 second, the whole house holds its breath. Then a voice behind me whispers, "Daddy?" My knees almost give out. I grip the wall, fingers sliding across the paint, and force myself forward. No, no, no. If I look, I will see her. If I see her, I will not survive it. I reach the stairs. Going down is always the worst part. Every morning I pray I fall. I know that is a terrible thing to admit. But as I stand at the top of the stairs with my hand on the rail and my head bowed, I pray for one slip, one broken neck, one dark moment, one sudden accident to lift this weight from me. But God does not answer prayers like that. Or maybe he does, and my punishment is that he keeps saying no. I go down one step at a time. The tapping does not follow. Not yet. At the bottom, I stop. The dining room is to my left. I know they are there before I hear them. The air changes. It grows warmer. Their perfume reaches me first. Hers. Soft and floral, the same scent she wore when we first met. The same scent that lingered on my shirts when she hugged me before work. It should be impossible. The bottle was thrown away months ago. The clothes were washed. The room was cleaned. But the smell remains. Then comes the smaller smell beneath it. Strawberry shampoo. The one she picked herself because the bottle had a cartoon princess on it. My heart sinks so low I feel it in my stomach. They are sitting at the dining table. I can see only the chair legs, only the bottoms of their feet beneath the table. Hers still, the smaller one swinging slightly above the floor. Their heads are turned away from me. I know that without looking, they always sit that way at first, waiting, begging, wanting me to raise my eyes. Look at us, my wife says. Her voice is soft, almost normal, almost alive. I squeeze my eyes shut. Please, she says. Just once. The little feet swing faster. The shoes tap against the chair legs. Tap, tap, tap. Daddy, my daughter whispers, why won't you look at me? A sound escapes my throat, not a sob, not a word. Something weaker. I walk past them, the table shakes. A hand slams down on the wood. Then another. The chairs scrape backward. Look at us, my wife screams. I keep my head down. I walk to the front door. The keys are on the rack beside it. The problem is that the rack is too high. To see it, I would have to look up. So I do what I do every morning. I reach blindly. My fingertips touch the wall first. The paint feels damp. It is always damp there now. I slide my fingers across it slowly, feeling bumps, cracks, old nail holes. Then I find the wooden key rack. My fingers move over the hooks. First set, large keys heavy with keychains. Little photos sealed in plastic. A smiling woman. A little girl with missing front teeth. A family at the beach. Those used to be my keys. I move past them quickly. Second set, her keys. A pink car key. Hand sanitizer clipped to the ring. A tiny charm shaped like a cat. My fingers stop on it for half a second before I force them onward. No, not those. Never those. Finally, I find the single gray car key. Mine now. Plain, cold, empty. Even the shine has worn off. Behind me, the banging at the dining table grows louder, wood shaking. Chairs scraping, small shoes tapping wildly against the floor. Look at us. Daddy, coward. It hits harder because she is right. Tears run down my face as I open the door. Morning air touches my skin. I step outside onto the front path. The cement beneath my shoes is pale and cracked. A tear falls from my nose and darkens it for one small second before sinking in. Behind me, the house screams. Not just them. The whole house, walls groaning. The dining table shaking so hard I can hear plates sliding across it, though there should be no plates there anymore. I pull the door shut slowly. The last thing I hear before it closes is my daughter's voice. Daddy, don't leave us again. The door clicks. Silence. I stand on the porch and take one deep breath, then another. I wipe my face with my sleeve. I straighten my shirt. I press my lips together until they remember the shape of a smile. The neighbor across the street waves from her driveway. She is holding her car keys and a travel mug. "Morning," she calls. "You doing all right?" My face stretches into something cheerful. Too cheerful. A large smile. A practiced smile. A lie wearing skin. "Hey, neighbor," I call back. My voice is bright, almost singing. "Oh, I'm about to get my Starbucks. I'm feeling grand. Thank you for asking." She smiles uncertainly. I wave. Then I walk to my car with my eyes still fixed on the ground. Behind me, inside the house, something taps once against the front window. Tap. I do not turn around. Story 5. I recently moved into my first apartment. That probably does not sound like much to some people. To most adults, it might seem like a normal part of life, something you do when you get older and finally have enough money to stand on your own. But to me, it was everything. I'm 22 years old, and getting out of my parents' house felt like the biggest achievement of my life so far. Don't get me wrong. My parents are not bad people. They love me, and I love them. But living under their roof had started to feel like wearing clothes that no longer fit. Every little thing became a conversation: where I was going, when I would be back, why I was eating so late, why I was sleeping so much, why I was still awake at 2 in the morning. I know they meant well, but after a while, even love can feel like a lock on the door. So when I signed the lease, got the keys, and carried the first box through my own front door, I felt like I had finally become a real person. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen, thin walls, and a living room that looked bigger before I put furniture in it. The carpet was old, the cabinets were cheap, and one corner of the bedroom always smelled faintly like dust, no matter how much I cleaned it. But it was mine. That was all that mattered. For the first few days, I enjoyed every tiny thing. I bought groceries and put them in my own fridge. I arranged my dishes in my own cabinets. I stayed up late watching movies with the volume low because I still felt guilty. Then remembered no one was going to knock on my door and tell me to go to bed. I ate cereal for dinner one night just because I could. It was freedom. Then I started hearing the growling. At first, I thought it was pipes. Old apartment buildings make strange noises, everyone knows that. Water knocks in the walls, vents hum, floors creak. Sometimes you hear footsteps from people you never see. I tried to be reasonable about it because I didn't want to become that new tenant who complained about everything during the first week. But pipes don't growl. Not like that. The sound came from above me, mostly at night. A low, guttural rumble that moved through the ceiling and seeped down into my apartment through the air vents. It was deep enough that I felt it more than heard it sometimes, like something vibrating inside the walls. The first time it happened, I was lying in bed scrolling on my phone. The apartment was dark except for the glow of the screen. Then, from the vent near my ceiling, came a long, rough growl. I froze. It sounded like a very large dog. Not barking, not whining, growling. The kind of growl an animal makes when it sees something it wants to tear open. I sat up and stared at the vent. For a while, there was nothing. Then it happened again, softer this time, almost like whatever made the sound had moved farther away. I turned on every light in the apartment. I told myself someone upstairs had a dog, even though that made no sense. Our building had a strict no pets policy. It was one of the first things written in the rental agreement. Bold print and everything. No pets allowed. Not small pets allowed. Not pets with permission. So why was there an animal growling above me? The next morning, I checked the hallway and looked at the door to the unit above mine. Apartment 304. Mine was 204, directly below it. The door looked normal enough. Plain brown wood, old brass number, peephole in the center. There was no welcome mat, no shoes outside, no signs of anyone coming or going. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Still nothing. I felt stupid standing there in the hall, so I leaned closer and called out, "Hey, sorry to bother you, I live below you. I just wanted to ask about some noise last night." I waited a few seconds, then heard something inside. A scrape. Not footsteps. Something dragging across the floor. I stepped back. "Hello?" The apartment went silent. I left after that. For the next week, the growling continued. Not every night, but most nights. Sometimes it came around midnight. Sometimes closer to 3 in the morning. A few times it woke me out of a dead sleep, and I would lie there staring up at the ceiling while that rough animal sound rolled through the vent. It was not just growling either. Sometimes I heard pacing, heavy, uneven steps moving across the floor above me, back and forth, back and forth. Long pauses, then another slow drag like claws scraping across wood. I tried knocking again. The person upstairs never answered. That made me angry more than scared at first. I mean, if you are breaking building policy by hiding some huge dog in your apartment, at least have the decency to answer the door when your neighbor asks you to keep it quiet. One afternoon, after another sleepless night, I went up there again. I knocked until my knuckles hurt. No answer. But I knew someone was inside. I could feel it. There is a certain kind of silence that happens when a place is empty, and another kind when someone is standing on the other side of the door, holding their breath. This was the second kind. "Look," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "I don't care if you have a dog. Just please keep it quiet at night. I have work in the morning." From inside the apartment, something growled. Low, close to the door. I backed away so fast I nearly hit the wall behind me. The growl stopped. Then, from the other side of the door, something scratched the wood. Once. Slowly, I went back downstairs and locked my door. After that, I decided I was done being polite. I filed a complaint with the building manager. I didn't want to be a snitch. I really didn't. But there is a difference between being annoyed by a neighbor and being kept awake by what sounds like a wolf living above your bedroom. Also, by then, the sounds had started to affect me. I was tired all the time. I jumped at every noise I avoided sitting under the vents. The manager, a tired-looking man named Mr. Callahan, listened to me with the expression of someone who had heard every possible tenant complaint and believed maybe 3% of them. "A dog?" he asked. "Something like that," I said. "It growls every night." He frowned. "In 304? "Yes." He looked at me a little longer. Then he glanced at his computer. "Are you sure it's 304? "I live directly below it," I said. "So yes, I'm pretty sure." He typed something, then stopped. His expression changed. Not fear exactly, more like discomfort. "Unit 304 is vacant," he said. I stared at him. "What?" "It's empty." "No, it's not." He looked back at the screen. "It has been vacant for years." For a moment, I thought he was messing with me. Maybe testing me. Maybe trying to avoid doing paperwork. But his face stayed serious. "That's impossible," I said. "I've heard someone walking around up there." I knocked. Something was inside. Mr. Callahan leaned back in his chair. "No one lives there." I laughed once, but it came out wrong. Then maybe someone broke in. He did not answer immediately. That made me even more uneasy. "What?" I asked. He sighed and rubbed his forehead. "The last tenant in 304 left suddenly," he said. "No notice. No forwarding address. Just gone." "When?" "Years ago." "What happened?" He hesitated. "The unit was destroyed." "Destroyed?" That word made my skin prickle. "What do you mean, destroyed?" He shifted uncomfortably. The sofa was ripped open. Curtains shredded. Cabinet doors splintered. Claw marks on the walls and floors. We had to strip most of the place. I swallowed. "Claw marks? That's what they looked like," he said quickly. "Could have been tools. Could have been vandalism. We never knew." "Did he have A pet? Then he looked at me in a way I didn't like he was wondering if I was the problem. I left the office feeling worse than before. For the next few days, I avoided the third floor completely. I stopped taking the stairs and used the elevator even though it was slow and smelled like old carpet. I kept the TV on at night to cover any noises from above. I even slept on the couch for a while because the living room felt slightly farther from the vents than my bedroom. And for a few weeks, nothing happened. No growling, no pacing, no scraping. I almost convinced myself it had all been stress. Moving out for the first time, sleeping in a new place, adjusting to old building noises. Maybe my brain had turned pipes and vents into something else. Maybe the manager was right to look at me like I was crazy. Then I saw my door. It was a Sunday morning. I was heading out to buy groceries when I opened my apartment door and stopped. There were claw marks on the outside. 3 deep scratches ran from about eye level down to the middle of the door. Long, uneven, and gouged into the wood hard enough to leave splinters hanging from the edges. I stood there holding my keys, staring. At first, I thought someone had done it with a knife, but the spacing was wrong. The marks looked like fingers. No, claws. Something had stood outside my apartment during the night and dragged its nails down my door. I called the manager again. He came up, looked at the marks, and went quiet. "You see?" I said. "This is what I'm talking about." He touched one of the scratches with his thumb. "Did you do this?" I stared at him. "Are you serious?" I have to ask. No, I didn't claw up my own door. He didn't seem convinced. He told me he would check the cameras, but conveniently, the camera in that hallway had been malfunctioning for days. He said maintenance would repair it soon. That night, I pushed my couch in front of the door. I know how stupid that sounds. A couch wouldn't stop much, but it made me feel better, and at that point, feeling better was all I had. Nothing happened for 3 nights. Then last night came. I woke up at 2:47 a.m., I know, because I checked my phone immediately. The room was dark, but something felt wrong before I heard anything. The air was heavy, still. The kind of stillness that makes you feel like the whole building is listening. Then the vent above my bed began to shake. A low growl rolled through it. Deep, wet, angry. The sound vibrated in my chest. I sat up slowly, staring at the vent as dust trembled loose from the metal slats. The growling grew louder. Then came footsteps above me. Heavy steps, one, then another. Dragging between each one, it moved across the ceiling directly over my bed. I could hear claws scraping against the floor upstairs. My heart started pounding. I got out of bed and backed toward the hallway. The sounds above me stopped. For a moment, everything went silent. Then something slammed against my front door. The couch jumped. I screamed. Another impact hit the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Then came the scratching. Not slow like before. Violent. Frantic. Claws tore at the outside of the door, ripping into the wood with a sound that made my teeth hurt. The door began to bend inward near the middle, the old wood warping under pressure. I stumbled backward into the kitchen, grabbing the largest knife I owned. The growling came from the hallway now, not above, not through the vent, outside my door. Whatever had been upstairs was now standing right outside my apartment. The couch scraped across the floor as something pushed against the door again. A crack appeared near the lock. I whispered, "No, no, no," over and over. Like that would help. Then the growling stopped. A voice came through the door. It was low and rough, like someone speaking with a throat full of gravel. "You complained." I froze. The voice dragged each word out slowly, as if it was remembering how to talk. "You knocked." I gripped the knife tighter. "You listened." The wood around the lock split. I backed away until I hit the counter. Then, from above me, I heard another sound. Footsteps. Still in apartment 304. Moving across the floor. I stared at the ceiling, then at the door. There was something outside my apartment, but there was still something upstairs, too. The voice behind the door chuckled. It sounded almost human, almost. Then it whispered, "No pets allowed." The door bent inward again. That was the moment the only clear thought in my mind arrived. I am so moving back in with my parents. I didn't wait for the door to break. I ran to the bathroom, locked myself inside, and called 911 with shaking hands. While the phone rang, something scraped slowly down the other side of the bathroom door. Not the front door, the bathroom door. It had gotten inside, the operator answered, and I tried to speak, but all that came out was a strangled sound. Then the growling started again, right beside my ear, from the bathroom vent. Story 6. The sleeping child was tied to a wooden pole in the center of town. He was placed beside the old gallows. The one people said was haunted, though nobody in Springwater liked to speak about that after dark. The gallows stood empty, black against the moonlight, its rope long removed, but somehow still remembered by everyone who passed it. It was late, well past midnight, the hour when decent people should have been asleep behind locked doors. The hour when the thing had been seen moving through alleys, over roofs, and between homes, searching for little bodies and warm blood. The child did not struggle. He could not. They had drugged him. He slept heavily, his head tilted against his shoulder, his small chest rising and falling beneath the pale glow of the full moon. That moon hung above the town like a white, watchful eye. It saw everything. It saw the child, the men hiding nearby, the empty gallows, the dry dirt road, and the dark desert stretching around Springwater like a grave. But if there was anything holy watching from above, it did not seem ready to help. Springwater sat in the Arizona Territory, and the year was 1888. The boy was bait. There was no kinder word for it, even though every man involved tried to find one inside himself. He was the helpless lamb placed out in the open to draw in the thing that had been hunting the town. It had taken children from their beds. It had dragged them through windows. It had left their bodies outside town, torn open and emptied. Not just murdered, ruined, desecrated, drained of blood until there was hardly anything human left in them. No one in Springwater could keep pretending it was an animal. No wolf did that. No coyote, no mountain cat. Whatever hunted their children did not belong to the natural world, and because of that, the town had chosen something unnatural in return. They had tied a living child to a post and waited. Quincy Morris watched from the sheriff's office window with his pipe clenched between his teeth. He had seen strange things before. More than most men, the war had shown him horrors that never properly left the world. He had seen dying men scream for mothers who were long dead. He had seen bodies move after they had no reason to move. He had slept in fields where the soil smelled of blood and powder, and in the dark, he had heard the dead crying beneath the ground. Some places stayed stained. Some deaths did not settle. And some things that wandered the earth were shaped like men only because God had not yet found the time to correct them. Quincy drew deeply on his pipe, and the orange glow warmed the hard lines of his bearded face. Then he coughed and spat into the spittoon near his boot. Across the small office sat Chaco Juan Maria Ramirez. He had promised to be there, and Quincy knew why. Chaco's son, little Javier, had been among the first children taken. The Mexican sat on a rough stool, drinking from a heavy clay jug and smoking small, oily cigarillos that filled the room with the thick smell of cannabis. Quincy had always been curious about that smoke. It seemed to calm Chaco, or at least it softened the rage that lived under his skin. The man's eyes always looked wet. Tears stayed gathered there, ready to fall, but never quite falling. His wife once told someone she thought his eyes were beautiful. She hated the pain in them, though. They were the only wet thing left in him. The rest was sun-baked leather, tequila, grief, and dust. The sheriff was there, too. Anson, pale, stiff, and sick with guilt. So was the Pinkerton agent, straight-backed and calm in a way that almost seemed unnatural. He had come to investigate the murders, though Quincy suspected he had never expected to find anything like this. At first, the agent had resisted the plan, calling it madness. But he had seen what the creature did to the Kendridge girl. They had all seen it. They had seen the thing tear her from her room in the night, seen her little body found days later in the barrens outside town, ripped open, dry, left as if something had fed and then mocked the living with what remained. Now none of them spoke much. The sheriff's office was hot and close. Candlelight trembled against the walls. Quincy hated the smallness of it. He wanted to see the sky, the wide black blanket full of diamond stars, because the sky had always seemed better than anything men built below it. But the window gave him only a narrow view of the child outside. That was enough. Better to keep his eyes on the earth tonight. "This is wrong," Sheriff Anson said again. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a man trying not to break. Quincy did not answer. He thought the sheriff was a sentimental fool for saying it now. Of course it was wrong. Everything about it was wrong, but wrong things sometimes stood between worse things. The Pinkertons spoke instead. "There is much in this town that is wrong, Sheriff," he said. "Much. This is distasteful, yes. And what may come tonight will leave a worse taste still. I suggest we prepare ourselves for the work at hand and save the sermons for afterward." "You goddamn," Anson began, but his voice failed him. He bit down on his cap and looked away into the dark corner of the office. Quincy nodded slightly to the Pinkerton. The Pinkerton nodded back. At first, the agent had not thought much of Quincy. A Texan gunfighter, Confederate past. Too many miles on him, too many stories behind his eyes. But Quincy had handled himself well when they found the Kendridge girl. He had helped bury what was left of her with more care than some churchman would have shown. That counted for something. Maybe enough. The Pinkerton was less sure about the sheriff, and even less sure about Chaco, who was drinking steadily and smoking like he wanted to blur the whole world. Grief was understandable, but they needed clear eyes tonight. They needed steady hands. Then Chaco spoke. He did not look at any of them at first. He stared into the smoke around him and began telling a story as if the waiting had made room for old ghosts to climb out of him. "I was young," he said, "like my Javi. We were farmers in Agua Caliente, my father, my mother, my sisters, and me. It was the summer of my 13th year when something began to come at night for the chickens, then the goats, then anything that slept outside. He stopped to pull from the jug. Then he lit another cigarillo. It ripped the animals apart," he continued. "Not like a hungry animal, not like a wolf. It left pieces everywhere, bones, entrails, heads, feet, blood all over the ground. But the pieces looked placed, like patterns, like a language, little shrines made of meat. The men listened. Quincy kept his eyes on the window. My father said only a devil enjoyed that kind of carnage," Chaco said. "Only a demon would walk the earth just to mock God and man. We thought he was crazy. My mother, my sisters, me. We all thought he had frightened himself with old stories. Then one night, I saw it." He stopped again. For a moment, nobody moved. Chaco's wet eyes reflected the candlelight, and in them, Quincy saw a boy standing under a moon many years ago. "It was in the yard," Chaco said. "Moonlight on it. It looked like a coyote, but sick. Wrong, part wolf, part dog, part hairless rat, thin jaws, long body. No proper fur. It had my father's little dog in its mouth, Paxi. Blood and guts hanging from the thing's face. It was canine, yes, but it had man in it too. Not enough to be human, but enough to insult humans. Its eyes were green and red. When it saw me watching, it smiled. Then it stood up on two legs so I could see it better." Sheriff Anson leaned forward despite himself. "What did you do?" he asked. Chaco gave a low laugh without humor. "I screamed. Then I ran. My father came with his gun and shot at it as it ran into the dark. He said he hit it. I never knew if that was true. What was it? The Pinkerton asked. Quincy already knew what Chaco would say. The goat-drinking demon, Chaco whispered. Chupacabra. Bloodwolf, devil from hell. Outside, the child slept against the post. They all knew his name. Every man in that office knew it. But none of them wanted to think of him as anything but the child. God forgive them for that. God forgive the 2 deputized men currently keeping the boy's parents inside their own home at gunpoint, just for the night. God forgive the whole town for allowing this. Surely God understood. Quincy hoped so. Then he spoke. We were on retreat from Sherman's boys. All eyes turned to him. He kept looking through the window as he talked. I don't recall exactly where we were, he said. Everything was fear and mud by then. Nobody seemed to know where we were going or what we were doing. At night, nobody dared make a fire. We lay in the dark like we were already dead, waiting for the Yankees to find us and finish the job. He struck a match and lit his pipe again. The flame made his face look severe and empty. One night, I managed to sleep. I was so tired I felt half buried already. Then I woke in the pitch black and heard a heavy sound. Wet, like something drinking from a stream or a trough. He drew smoke into his lungs. It made me sick before I even knew what it was. My eyes adjusted after a bit. Then I saw it. It was over my brother Jamie, naked, pale, skeletal. Its mouth was red. Jamie had a gunshot wound gone bad. Infection was killing him slow. That thing had its mouth on the wound, drinking the rotten blood, sucking out sickness and powder and Yankee lead. Chaco stopped drinking. The sheriff stared. It looked up when it knew I saw it, Quincy said. Hissed at me like some kind of drowned rat. Then it crawled away into the dark. I screamed and woke the whole camp. Next day, Jamie was dead. Eyes wide open, face frozen like he had died staring straight into hell. Quincy said nothing after that. The Pinkerton took the jug when Chaco offered it and drank deeply. Then he lit an imported cigar and sat very straight on his stool, calm as a judge. I was once on assignment with a good man, the agent began. Another operative, steady fellow, not one to frighten easily. Neither was I. Not then. He looked at the smoke curling from his cigar. We were after a murderer and robber. A cold-blooded man wanted to cross several states, hired by one of the railroads. We tracked him to San Francisco, then to towns along the Nevada border. Finally caught him in Pioche, alive. We had him bound and secured in a private rail car, taking him back to Washington to stand trial. For 4 days, all was well. No one entered our car except attendants with meals and coffee. We never took our eyes off him. He had a reputation for vanishing like smoke, and we gave him no chance. Then, before dawn on the 4th day, the train stopped. The Pinkerton leaned forward slightly. We were waylaid by more than 24 masked men. I thought they were men seeking revenge, men our prisoner had wronged. They had rifles on us before we could do much of anything. They took him from the car, already bound in our irons. But they did not lead him to a hanging tree. He swallowed. They led him to a stake. The candle flame bent slightly, though no wind entered the room. There was kindling around it, soaked in kerosene. We were kept near the train at gunpoint. I asked what authority they claimed. No answer. One of them unrolled a scroll and read aloud like a priest pronouncing judgment. He said the man's name, then words in Latin or something older, something dead. The agent took another drink. They bound our prisoner to the stake and pushed us back aboard the train. They told us to leave and forget the abomination shaped like a man. The engine started moving. Before we pulled away, I watched them set fire to the kindling. His face did not change, but his voice grew quieter. The man screamed. Then those screams changed. I heard pig squeals, bat shrieks, things no human throat should make. In the middle of the flames, his shape began changing. I thought stress had broken my mind. But as the train moved away, I saw black wings unfold from the burning man. He sat back. We made our report. We said we lost the prisoner. We left out the uncouth parts. Sheriff Anson looked at the three men as if he no longer recognized the room he was sitting in. He had not believed in such stories before. But then again, he had seen the Kendridge girl. He reached for Chaco's jug. Chaco frowned, but handed it over. Anson drank, then spat on the floor instead of the spittoon. "I don't know if I believe any of you," the sheriff said. "You talk like you already know the dark and what lives in it. So tell me, how do you kill something like this?" Quincy opened his mouth to answer. He had heard enough stories to know not every Nosferatu was immune to bullets. And if this thing was, he had brought something better, something gathered from priests, shamans, medicine men, and holy men along his long road. But before he could speak, he saw movement outside, something crawling toward the child. It moved on all fours like a beast, back hunched high, shoulder blades shifting beneath pale blue hide. Its head hung low. Its limbs were too long and too thin. Quincy gave one sharp word. The men sprang up. Guns came out. Hammers thumbed back. Anson grabbed his double-barreled scattergun. Chaco moved fast despite the drink. The Pinkerton stood with his revolver ready. Quincy opened the door. Before he stepped out, he offered one silent prayer between himself and the Lord. "Please, whatever happens, let this child see tomorrow. Whatever happens to me and these men, let this little one live. Amen." Then he threw the door open. The four men charged. The creature was nearly on the boy. It rose on bowed hind legs, its body half man, half nightmare. Pale skin stretched over twisted bones. Its face was a mix of goblin, hairless rat, and bat. Its nostrils were wide pink caverns and a corpse-colored face. A fanged mouth opened and dripped black fluid as it hissed at them. Anson and Quincy fired first. Chaco and the Pinkerton fired a breath later. The pistol shots struck but did not stop it. They angered it. The thing jerked backward and spread a pair of webbed black wings beneath its pale arms. It tried to lift from the ground, but Anson's scattergun roared. The blast grazed the top of its skull, peeling away a strip of scalp and taking the tip of one long ear. The creature shrieked. It fell away from the child, then suddenly charged the men. They fired without mercy. Bullets tore into its hide. Wounds opened across its body like red and black flowers. Bone showed through. Dark ichor sprayed. Its yellow eyes glowed with predator fury until the shots burst them both with wet pops. Thick yellow bile spilled from the ruined sockets. Still, the thing came on. It leapt. The Pinkerton went down beneath it in a cloud of dust. He screamed as claws dug into him. The creature tore through cloth, flesh, and muscle as if ripping warm bread. Its mouth found his throat. The scream stopped almost at once. Then came the sound. Heavy gulping. The thing was drinking. For a moment, the other men froze. Chaco came back to himself first and fired again. Quincy and Anson followed. Their guns thundered until the chambers emptied. Under the renewed assault, the creature abandoned the Pinkerton's body and crawled away fast and low, fleeing toward the dark edge of town. The three remaining men gave chase. Chaco ran ahead, driven by a father's grief and tequila fury. Anson followed with his scattergun. Quincy cursed under his breath as he reached into his pocket for the special cylinder he had prepared. 6 holy rounds, blessed lead, sacred silver, things whispered over by men who knew the old dark better than most. He broke open his gun and changed cylinders while running. The creature fled past the cath house, hissing and screaming in some animal language full of rage and hunger. Quincy knew the other 2 men did not understand. They were brave, but bravery had a habit of leading fools to death. They rounded the corner. The thing was there. It crouched in the dirt, clutching its ruined eyes with long claws. Yellow slime ran between its fingers. It sobbed and hissed, not with sorrow, but with fury, like a wounded beast angry that pain had dared touch it. It heard them. Its body tightened. Then it leapt. A blind, shrieking, bat-shaped corpse of a thing crashed down toward Chaco. Quincy fired. The barrel of his revolver was almost touching the side of the creature's ruined head when he pulled the trigger. The shot was immediate and terrible. Holy fire punched through the thing's skull. One long ear vanished with a spray of black, red, green, and gray matter. The creature fell away from Chaco and writhed in the dirt. Its head began to smoke. Its claws went to its own throat as if it meant to choke itself before God could do the work. Then the ruined head glowed from within. A silver flame burst from it. Not orange fire, not ordinary flame. Silver-white light, pure and fierce, beautiful in a way too painful to look at. The men turned their faces away and shielded their eyes as the creature gave one last unearthly shriek. It howled up toward the full moon, which watched from above with cold, immortal indifference. Then the silver flame burned the head clean from the blue corpse. The headless body collapsed into the dirt and curled inward like a spider crushed under a boot. For a long time, none of the men moved. They only stood there, gasping, unable to believe what they had survived. Later, Sheriff Anson carried the child back to his parents. They were furious at first, as any parents would be, then grateful that gratitude would spread through the whole town by morning, though no one would speak too loudly about how the child had been used. Quincy and Chaco took the headless remains of the creature outside town. They staked it through the heart with a sharpened wooden spike and a heavy hammer. The stake slid through too easily. The body quickly liquefied, collapsing into rotten sludge and dark filth. They sealed the foul remains in a large cask and buried it far out in the desert. The Pinkerton agent's body was staked, too, just to be safe. Then they buried him properly outside town beneath a plain cross. No name. Only the date. They considered writing to his superiors. In the end, they did not. Quincy Morris rode out before the next sunset. After the agent was laid in the ground, he rode alone into the desert, and most of Springwater was glad to see him go despite what he had done for them. Chaco understood. He was grateful for the Texan, truly. But Quincy would always be a reminder of the thing in the night, of the baited child, of the blood of the grave outside town with no name on it. Most of all, he would remind Chaco of Javier. So when Quincy rode away into the red dust and sinking sun, Chaco watched him leave and felt no anger, only relief. And grief. Always grief.